We are now recording this session. So tonight we're going to be talking about teaching academic subjects and English as a medium of instruction. First, to approach the topic of teaching academic subjects, I'm going to share with you the Canvas platform, and this is under the TESOl section of the Canvas modules. This is towards the end of the modules. And when we think about teaching academic subjects, and here it's talking about academic reading, we're not talking about the academic subject of English only. We're talking about any subject, any academic subject. It could be biology or mathematics, or it could be English, or it could be Spanish, it could be history, it could be any subject. And how do we teach that subject? And there are several key skills connected with teaching any subject in an academic environment. First of all, synthesizing the information presented in the text. This means that you can read chunks of text and identify main ideas that are being expressed. You should be able to draw connections between individual sentences and paraphrase the information that is presented. Identify the author's rhetorical purpose. When you read a piece of information, you should be able to understand why the author has included it. Is it an example of a phenomenon, a supporting detail for an argument, or perhaps the introduction of a new idea? Understanding the structure of each paragraph and the whole passage is critical to understanding its contents. Scan the text to find specific pieces of information. In order to put together the big picture about what's going on in a passage, you will also need to comprehend the little pieces that fit together to make that big picture. It is important to be able to quickly locate a sentence or portion of a paragraph that discusses a particular point. Once you've found that sentence, you can reread it in order to understand exactly what is being expressed. Understand the academic vocabulary used in the passage. A newspaper or magazine article might use more everyday language, the sort of thing you hear in conversations and read in emails. But an academic text, regardless of the subject, contains certain vocabulary that is standard in academic discourse. There might be words related to presenting theories, such as propose, hypothesis, scenario, or there could be words that connect two sentences, such as however, in addition, thus. A good reader should be familiar with this type of vocabulary. And then this is going on to describe more about the reading section of the TESOl test, the TESOl exam. The section uses reading passages from university-level textbooks that introduce a topic. The passage may have been changed slightly to make them appropriate for testing purposes, but they are real academic materials. In the area of inference and rhetorical purpose questions, inference questions ask about ideas and arguments that are not explicitly stated in the text. Rhetorical purpose questions are similar. They ask about why the author presents a piece of information. More information about the rhetorical purpose sample question. In the rhetorical purpose question in the video, the correct answer choice is C. In this video, you can watch that video yourself from the Canvas platform. Toward the end of the paragraph, the author mentions that the dinosaur extinctions have always intrigued paleontologists. We find out why they were so intrigued in the next two sentences. They were intrigued because the extinctions came so suddenly and occurred even though the dinosaurs had been flourishing for a long time. So the author includes that information in order to explain why the Cretaceous extinction has always been so intriguing. Answer choices A, B, and D all include correct statements from the paragraph, but they cannot be correct answers to this question because none of them states the author's reason, the rhetorical purpose, for telling us that the dinosaurs flourished, then suddenly disappeared. Answer choice A is incorrect because nothing else in the paragraph supports the author's statement that the Cretaceous extinction is the best documented of the large extinctions. While that statement may be true, it is not related to the information asked about in the question, about how long the dinosaurs had lasted and then how quickly they disappeared. Answer choice B is incorrect because it states a fact about the Cretaceous extinction, but does not tell us why the author includes the information that this particular extinction was very, very sudden. So you can listen to the little video and then you can read that section as well yourself. Managing your time. Now, this again is talking about the EIFL or about the TOEFL testing and managing your time to fit into the allotment of time given to you. But time management applies to any type of lesson plan that we're organizing. So as you are doing your conversation activities and your 4 skills lesson plans, organizing their time management is a key and crucial part of that equation. There are several key skills that you'll need to be successful in the reading section. You should be able to synthesize information presented in the text, and doing that in your lesson plans is also a very important thing to be able to do. Synthesize it, scrunch it down to the smallest piece of information. You don't need to have long, extensive sentences to describe things that you can describe just in a few words. So synthesizing and reducing the quantity of information is crucial when you're organizing lesson plans. Identifying the author's rhetorical purpose. We read about that up above a little bit a few moments ago. Scan the text to find specific pieces of information. Scanning and skimming through text is a very valuable skill to be able to do. So you can get a quick overview of the information that you're dealing with, regardless of the subject. So there are lots of important details and key information in this section. I just wanted to make sure that we looked at it so that you were aware of it being here, and I would encourage you to read through this material on your own time. So we're not going to read absolutely all of this right now, because I do want to go to a couple of PowerPoints and give you some other information that I've prepared this way. So just enlarge this so you can read it better. So this again is teaching academic English for academic purposes. Now, as I mentioned a few moments ago, we're not talking about teaching English, the subject of English necessarily. We're talking about teaching any subject in an academic environment and using the English language to do it. So here are 5 tips to successfully teach English for academic purposes. This could apply to any language. Selena, these tips would apply to teaching Spanish for academic purposes as well.
Yes.
Number 1, use authentic materials. Articles from newspapers and magazines rather than English as second language sites. Read short stories written for native speakers. Listen to songs sung in English. And any other ideas that might occur to you as you're developing your lesson plans. Use authentic classroom materials. Choose the materials, such as textbooks, that are not designed for English as second language. Because when your students are attending college, they will not get specially designed textbooks. So you may have had experience teaching English using specific textbooks that were designed for students learning English as a second language. And that caters to their needs, and that's fine to a certain point. But when they get into the real world of post-secondary education, college or university, nobody is going to give them a specially written textbook that is written to help them understand the language when English is their second language. So if you use textbooks that are not designed as ESL textbooks, then that will help the students prepare for later studies. Use real college lectures. On YouTube and other websites, you can find actual recorded lectures from a number of universities. You can access free lectures from universities like Yale and Harvard. And you prepare your students for the experience of listening to lectures and taking notes as they're listening. That's a very good exercise for them to write down point form notes as they listen to these lectures being delivered. That helps to improve their listening skills tremendously. And if our listening skills are highly developed, then our speaking and our reading and writing is going to be better as well. Assignments similar to college. So you want to prepare your students for the college environment and the experiences they will have in English colleges and universities in a new country, in a new culture, with new courses. Preparation and clarity bring confidence. So as you help them develop their abilities through assignments that are real life assignments that's similar to what they would get in the actual college or university classroom, then you're going to help build their confidence tremendously. And tip number 5, let the students direct their own learning. Give students freedom to decide what topics to cover in class, what types of assignments they will do, and how they will study to accomplish these assignments. Give the students choices to choose from. Give them some ownership over the decision of what they actually do as the assignment. By giving them choices in what and how they learn, you will be meeting their needs in greater depth. All the material in this presentation is from this blog that I found on the internet, and I'm going to put that link in the chat box for you so that you can copy it and see if I can just get it copied here. You can copy the link. Just get it copied over. You can copy it and you can go and look at it on your own time. So there's the link that will take you to that blog. And it was in this blog that I took all the information that was in this PowerPoint presentation that we just looked at. Any questions about this PowerPoint, ladies? Any questions or comments?
No, sir, not from my side.
Okay,
Not for my side either, I think.
very good. So when we talk about teaching academic subjects, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, it's not about specifically teaching English, the subject of English. It's about teaching a variety of subjects. And I'm sure you've heard of STEM teaching. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So teaching academic English could be the teaching of any one of these subject matters as well. Oh, let me just expand this slideshow. And there are STEM teaching tools on this website. It's a very interesting website, and they've got different categories and different links within their website that you can go and have a look at. You can find this just by typing into your Google search bar, STEM teaching tools, and it will take you to this website. Next generation science standards will focus on specific issues. They will leverage the best knowledge from research and practice. So this is the future of science and research. Help your students grow into becoming part of the solution. Develop their problem-solving skills. Encourage creative thinking processes. Attempts are not failures unless you stop. Each attempt is a step of discovery. Topics include, it's important to distinguish between explanation and argumentation practices in the classroom. Why investigate contemporary science and not just settled science? What they mean by settled science is science that has had conclusions made about it in the past. Are there multiple instructional models that fit science and engineering practices in NGSS? Yes, there are. Students benefit from expanding what counts as engineering. So engineering is not just about building a bridge. Engineering has many other aspects to it as well. Yes, Bushra, I see your hand up. You have a question, Bushra?
Yes, sir. Can you listen me now? Uh,
Yes.
Sir, I have seen that STEM approach teaching in different schools. But now there is one more thing that I don't know what is that. Some schools are approaching STEM teaching, learning, and some are introducing PYP approach, PYL approach. I don't know what these kind of approaches, PSP approach. What are these?
The STEM approach, you know what that means.
So I know now STEM approach means, but some schools are also approaching this kind of teaching that is called PYP approach, in which everything should be physical. Like they have to do all the experiments there should not be proper books or a course outline. But whatever will be the topic, they will first discover it by themselves and then they have to do the work. And there is no proper outline, proper course outline. But some schools, they are in Pakistan here, they are using PYP approach, and they are saying that it is a internationally recognized method.
It's more of a discovery method. The students are learning by discovering things, by doing things, rather than following an organized curriculum. Is that how it's done?
All right, sir.
Bushra, could you type in the chat box the name of that style of classroom approach that you were talking about? What is it called? PYP approach. Just give me a moment. Let me look something up here. It stands for Policy and Practice of Transdisciplinary in the International Baccalaureate. So transdisciplinary learning in the PYP conveys learning that has relevance between, across, and beyond subjects and transcends borders connecting to what it is in the real world.
And sir,
So
what is IB approach? Like PYP is related to IB approach.
IB is the International Baccalaureate.
Okay. So what's the difference in IB approach and STEM-based learning?
Well, STEM-based learning looks at each individual subject by itself. But this PYP approach, this is more of a cross-disciplinary, cross-curriculum approach. So the PYP approach might, for instance, take a topic such as climate change, and inside the project about climate change, the student would be doing mathematics work, they would be doing science research, they would be doing history, study of history and geography. So they would bring all these different academic disciplines into the PYP approach, into the cross-disciplinary approach. Does that make sense?
Yes, a little bit, because sir, last time I went in a school for interview, and they were basically using IB approach, and they were very confident that this is very new approach, and it is internationally recognized, and we are doing that, and this is first time in Pakistan in some schools, some top-notch schools are following that IB method. So
Sure.
I was a
And
little bit,
it uses an inquiry-based teaching approach. So it has the students asking a lot of questions, and it has the students really doing a lot of problem solving.
all right,
Whereas
sir.
with STEM, they study science as the science subject. They study technology as the technology subject. They study the separate subject matters. But with this PYP learning, they're doing the cross-disciplinary, cross-curriculum studying approach. Transdisciplinary, they call it.
All right, sir. And some of the schools are also using that stamp-based approach. And they mention in their website that we are following stamp-based approach. And some schools are writing that we are approaching this IB method.
Right, right. And I know different schools have support different theories and different approaches, and they have a different way of doing things. But
So
the
what?
PYP,
So, what
go
do you
ahead.
think? Which approach is better for a child? Is it IB approach? It is a STEM approach, or it is the approach that we used to learn back in our childhood? So, because the world is changing so rapidly, and the teaching methods are also changing with that. So, which approach should we find better for the kids? Is it a STEM? Is it IB? Or is it a regular curriculum method that we are following in different schools? That there should be textbook, there should be practical, there should be everything. What do you
Well,
suggest?
those are excellent questions, Bushra. Personally, I believe that this transdisciplinary approach is a very effective approach, having the students study and problem solve about a particular topic and have them studying across the curriculum. So they're looking at different subjects such as science and history and math and geography. They're looking at those different topics inside the same question or the same problem that they're trying to solve.
Uh,
As I said, for instance, climate change. Climate change could be your topic. And inside that, you could have the students doing exercises in mathematics, and they could be studying the history of climate change. They could be studying the science behind climate change. So you're able to bring all the different disciplines into the topic of climate change.
so another question. Sorry, I'm doing so more questions about it. So the thing is that when a child is going to appear for O levels exam, so he has to learn all the subjects. So this PYP approach is covering the pattern of O level system or not? Or the child will going to have difficulty while sitting in an O level exam or an A level exam?
Well, if it is taught well and if it's taught properly, then the student will learn all the material they need for whatever level exam they have to write. That's up to the teacher to provide the learning material to make sure the student is prepared for the exam.
All right, sir.
But,
Thank you.
but whether you teach the subjects separately, whether you have a separate class for mathematics, a separate class for history, or whether you teach by topics such as climate change, and then inside that topic you have the mathematics and you have the science. Whichever approach you use, it's the teacher's responsibility to make sure that the student covers what they need to cover in order to pass examination testing.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Does that make sense, Bushra?
Yes, sir. A little bit. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. You're welcome. So let's have a look at another PowerPoint here. And with this PowerPoint, I just wanted to demonstrate. There we go. It's bigger so you can see it. I wanted to demonstrate this particular academic subject of finance and accounting. Like I say, it doesn't matter what the subject is. You can take an academic approach towards the English language that is used in that subject. So in finance and accounting, this is just a summary of what is going to be looked at in this PowerPoint. We'll look a bit at stock market history. We have a look at the different global stock market indices. Not all of them, because there are hundreds of stock markets around the globe, but I chose a few of the bigger, better known ones. We talk about what is AA rating, what does it mean? We look at when Canada had their AA rating reduced, their AAA rating reduced to AA, and we talk about what are the three primary asset classes. So first of all, the first chartered corporation on the globe was founded in 1602. It was known as the Dutch East India Company, officially the United East India Company. So this was the first stock-based company on the face of the earth over 400 years ago. So what happened was that the government of the Netherlands went to some of the large business owners and they said to them, instead of you businessmen competing against each other and having trade wars and all kinds of other problems, why don't you band together and form a trading company, and then each of you can participate in the benefits and the profits of that trading company. So the business people put a certain number of dollars into a trading company, and that bought them stock, just as you can buy stocks of companies on the internet today. So if a particular business person put in $100, or the currency was guilders, but let's call it dollars, so we're more familiar with the term. One businessman put in $100, another businessman put in $200. So that meant that for every dollar of profit that the first person made, the second person would make $2 of profit, because their profits were based on how much they put in the first place. And so this Dutch East India Company was funded by all of these rival business people who were asked to work together by the government at the time, the Dutch government. And they benefited tremendously. And that Dutch East India Company was, in fact, it was like the Amazon of today, in both scope of products and shipping globally as they understood it at the time. So Amazon, as you all know, Amazon, you can buy almost anything through Amazon and they will ship anywhere in the world. And that was exactly what this company did. They shipped all over the known world of the time, the world that was settled at the time. Then we go to look at stock markets, stock exchanges. The Toronto Stock Exchange, the TSE, TSX, is the largest stock exchange in Canada. It's not the only one. There's a Winnipeg Stock Exchange for commodities. There's one in Montreal. There's one in Vancouver. So Canada has several stock markets, but the TSX is the largest one. And it's a publicly traded company. You can actually buy stocks to own a little piece of the TSX, the Toronto Stock Exchange. And then in New York, in the United States, there's the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So when people talk about the stock market is up or down, they're usually referring to this US stock market, because the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the US stock exchange, is the largest stock exchange in the world. And so this is the stock market, the US stock market, that people refer to when they say, oh, the market is up or the market is down. This is what they're talking about, the Dow Jones stock market. And what it does is it tracks 30 large publicly owned blue chip companies. Can somebody tell me, what does blue chip mean? What is a blue chip company? Do you know what that means? Have you heard that reference before?
Sir, maybe a company that is working from past many years and a settled organization.
That's correct, Bushra. It's a blue chip company is a company that is well established and has been around for many years. They're usually very big companies as well, and rich companies. Those are blue chip companies. Nicely done. Thank you. In London, England, the UK Stock Exchange, known as the FTSE, which stands for the Financial Times Stock Exchange 100 Index, that's the stock market in the UK, in London, England. And then in Frankfurt, Germany, the stock market is called the DAX. That is their big stock market. In Hong Kong, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange is called the Hang Seng Index. And it's again looking at blue chip stocks traded on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. The index is composed of 4 subsector indices in industry, finance, utilities, and real estate investment trusts. The index uses a free float market capitalization weighting scheme with a 10% cap on any one component's index weight. In China, the Shanghai Stock Exchange is the largest in China, mainland China. It's a non-profit organization run by the China Securities Regulatory Commission, excuse me, run by the government. And it deals with stocks, funds, mutual funds, bonds, and derivatives. It trades all of those on the exchange. In Japan, the Nikkei is the stock exchange title. And Nikkei is short form for Japan's Nikkei 225 stock average, the leading and most respected index of Japanese stocks. So the Nikkei is equivalent to the Dow Jones Industrial Average in the United States. For many, many years, through the 1970s, 1980s, and first half of the 1990s, the United States was the largest economy on the face of the earth, represented about 70% of market capitalization and economic growth on the face of the earth. And Japan, during that time frame, represented about 25%. And between the two of them, they were over 90% of market growth and market development on the face of the earth. Canada, at the same time, in that time frame, Canada represented about 2.3% of economic growth and market capitalization. So Canada never has been known for its massive economy. We have a strong economy, and we have a very strong banking system because of all the rules and regulations that exist around our banking system has made it very strong. But Canada's strength in the international world has been our diplomacy, our diplomats over the decades, and it's been our, the commodities that Canada has, the natural elements of lumber and oil from Alberta, the tar sands in Alberta. These are the things that made Canada important on the global economic stage. Not our stock markets, because our stock markets are nowhere near as big as the US and Japan used to be. Japan is no longer the big stock market like that. Which two countries are the biggest stock markets right now? Does anybody know? What are the two countries with the biggest economies, the biggest stock markets right now?
China and US?
Yes, definitely. China and the US, that's correct. And that has been in the last decade or so that China has grown significantly in its economic size and economic power. There was a massive development in China of the middle class during the past 10, 15, 20 years. And that has caused China to really develop a very strong economy. Then we get into what are bond ratings. So Standard and Poor's, Fitch and Moody's, these are different companies that apply bond ratings to governments and to companies. And based on the bond rating, if a company or a government has a AAA bond rating, then it is very easy for them to borrow money because it means they have a very high credit rating. So this is like a credit ranking. If you have a AAA credit rating, that's the highest credit rating you can get. So Canada had a AAA credit rating for many years, the bond rating. And these bond ratings are used to rank the ability to repay debts on bonds that are issued by governments or corporations. Does anybody know why a government or a corporation would issue a bond, why they would sell bonds to investors? So why would a government sell bonds?
Sir, they sell bonds to the people so that if they are investing in a company, when the people buy the bonds from the company, they will people will invest their money into the company, and after a while, company will have government have the money to build up anything, any company, and after some time, they give some interest to the people if the company is going successful or something like that. So it is necessary for them to give the bonds in terms of a bonds
Yes,
just
that
to stabilize the government, just to stabilize the economy.
and the bonds also provide the ability for the company or the government. So if a government or a corporation is selling a bond to an investor out in the public, then the company or the government borrows that money. The
Yes, sir.
bond is the bond is just to show that the government has borrowed money from that person, and
Yes,
it
sir.
gives the government those dollars
Mm.
to invest in infrastructure such as building roads, building
Yes, sir.
bridges, doing
Mm.
special projects, and they
Mm.
pay interest back to the person who loaned
Person.
the money.
Yes, sir.
So that the person who bought the bond earns interest until the government pays back the full bond to them.
Mm.
So it's a way for governments and corporations to raise money for research and development and for infrastructure building, rather than selling shares. Because if the company sells shares of its corporation, then it's actually selling part of the ownership of the company. So if you buy shares or stocks of a corporation, you actually own a little piece of that company. And that's different than lending your money through a bond purchase. It's a different type of investment. So back at the beginning of the pandemic, back in June of 2020, Canada lost its AAA rating. It was reduced to AA plus. Why do you think that happened? What do you think happened economically inside Canada back at the beginning of the pandemic? Why do you think they would have lost their AAA rating?
So when the pandemic came, it hit so many people. Their buying and selling purchase power has been reduced. They were in shock. They were in trauma. They were not going out. There was lockdown, and they were just in the houses. And if you are in a house, you have to look forward for the things as well. You have to go eating, but grocery purchasing. The main focus of people was to purchase and groceries and some medicines and some masks and sanitary items as well. And they were not willing to buy the bonds, they were not willing to invest their money because investment is a long process. If you are buying a bond, you have to sign the contract like to for 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, 3 years, and then your money will be frozen, and the benefits from that bond or shares will come after that. So the people during the pandemic did not wanted to spend their money or fix their money in what you can say in a long-term basis. They want short and quick results that so that they can be beneficial of it. Am I
And
right?
yes, you're absolutely correct, Bushra. Those are all very good points. The key thing behind Canada being reduced from a AAA rating down to AA plus, the key reason for that was because with the beginning of the pandemic, the Canadian government, as did so many other governments around the world, the Canadian government started to give money to most Canadians. Many Canadians were given money to help support them because they were not able to go to work during the
All right,
pandemic.
sir.
And it was because of that tremendous government debt that Canada increased the government debt so incredibly and developed such a huge debt, as many countries did. it was because of that high debt that the Fitch bond agency reduced Canada's rating to AA plus. And then this is just more about the that thing that happened. A big piece of the equation was the impact on Alberta's oil production due to the coronavirus pandemic, and as a key factor in Canada's financial situation. Because of course, when the pandemic hit and everybody was in lockdown and very few people were actually still driving, so there was no demand for gasoline for the cars, and that basically shut down Alberta's oil industry. So all these factors put together, because the Alberta oil is a big piece of Canada's economy, and all these factors put together reduced their rating, their bond rating. So you're not expected to know this information. I'm just giving you this slideshow as a demonstration of how you could present academic material on the topic of finance and investing. So when we talk about different asset classes, there are
Sir, we
three.
also, sorry.
Okay,
Sir,
go ahead.
we also have to do that for the foundation one.
No, I'm just showing you this as an example of how you could teach a particular academic subject using the English language. But you don't need to know the information. When we talk about different asset classes, one is equity. Equity means ownership. So it could be stock ownership, or if you own a home, the equity in your home, what you own, that is an equity investment. Fixed income, that's bonds and other marketable securities. And the third asset class is cash. So stock market or equity, bonds or loaning and borrowing, and then cash. Cash is anything that can be used to exchange goods, debt, or services. Something that can be easily liquidated into cash is considered to be a cash aspect of this asset class. So then we go into different types of accounting, gross domestic product, what that means for a company. We talk about balance sheets, corporate and personal balance sheets. And gross domestic product is the market value of all the finished goods and services produced within a country's borders in a specific time period, usually in a year. They usually talk about a 1-year time frame. The GDP for the fiscal year end of a given country. And it's a good indication of the country's economic health. Balance sheets show assets and liabilities. This is just different examples of it. The total assets must always equal the liabilities plus shareholders' equity. Shareholders' equity means the shareholders or the owners of the company have put cash into the company to help build it up. And that shareholder equity is always listed on the same side of the balance sheet as the liabilities are. And then we go into personal finances, and you can organize the assets and liabilities just as with corporations, doing a cash flow analysis for a monthly budget, and continuing on with that conversation. But I want to end that slideshow because I want to do a little bit more about English as a medium of instruction. So EMI, English as a medium of instruction. As we go through the slides, I'll be asking for your thoughts and opinions. At the end, I will ask for ideas about how we should implement or integrate EMI as teachers. Please write down ideas as we go along. Now, we may not have time to actually do that at the end of this hour, but that's okay. I'll show you what other classes have come up with. What is the currently preferred methodology for English language instruction to speakers of other languages? Can somebody tell me what is the current preferred methodology around the world?
Well, that would be the communicative language method.
That's exactly right. CLT, communicative language teaching. That's correct. English medium instruction, EMI, refers to the use of the English language to teach academic subjects other than English itself in countries where the first language of the majority of the population is not English. The world is seeing a boom in EMI as an educational model in universities, secondary schools, and even primary schools. The implications of this growing trend remain severely under-researched. EMI is increasingly being implemented via top-down policies, sometimes with little attention to the educational implications that learning through a second language can have for the millions of students affected. This research group exploring effects of EMI on language learning, content learning, teaching delivery, quality of education, inequalities of access, language flexibility and hybridity, and the competencies needed to be a successful EMI teacher, and other multifaceted aspects of EMI. The EMI Oxford Research Group cooperates with education institutions and organizations around the world through leading research into the extent and effects of EMI across the globe. How effective is English as a medium of instruction? This was an interview with Dr. Nicola Galloway about a report from the British Council in 2017. There's little research into EMI's impact on how much English students learn and what content they absorb. That's a quote from Dr. Galloway. Practical reasons. 94% of research in international high-impact publications is in English. The theory, the belief by many is that to stay current means you need to learn in English. Content is mostly English in technical fields, students' dissertations, and research. Universities in nations where students tend to be highly proficient in English, example, the Netherlands and Scandinavia, have often switched to English. The entire university has done that, especially for courses in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, the STEM subjects. The current boom in EMI is due to, mistakenly, the view that EMI speeds up graduates' upward social and economic mobility. Governments believe that EMI improves students' English proficiency and therefore creates a workforce that's more fluent in English. EMI gives students a double benefit: the knowledge of their subject plus English language skills. Governments and students think that it's more attractive in the global job market to have this ability in English. Universities switching to English do that to improve their graduates' job prospects and to make it more tempting to applicants drawn by well-paid future careers. English is the language of research. If more faculty speak English and have an increase of English language research published in international journals, this raises the university's position in global rankings. The surprising finding was that staff and students think differently about EMI. They say there's a need to provide a clear rationale for EMI programs based on what students will learn and how much English will be used. Robin Kiyuni in 2003 wrote this article, The Challenges of Using English as a Medium of Instruction in a Multilingual Context. It's a view from Ugandan classrooms, language, culture, and curriculum. The challenge is the teacher's use of EMI. It frustrates students' learning efforts instead of facilitating them. To facilitate learners' comprehension and analysis of classroom talk, teachers should be trained in two basic elements. Number one, skills necessary to support learning through an analytical understanding of language-related barriers. In other words, skills of integration for enhancing students' performance of the heuristic, self-learning, imaginative, and representational functions of language. And two, the teacher should be fluent in two critical skills of questioning and explaining. As teachers, how do we approach this challenge? Teachers should be involved in communication-based, communication-oriented learning activities. These are professional development activities that teachers should take part in. Encourage students to think aloud. Students' questions and requests for clarification are a positive sign of their attempts to internalize and organize knowledge. And now I would ask that you share some ideas, thoughts that you have for the implementation and integration of EMI within your classroom. So if you have any thoughts about how you would do this, you can certainly share those with us. And you can see here some ideas that came from other classes previously. And I added their thoughts on these slides at the end of the presentation. So between these 5 or 6 groups, they've covered an awful lot of points connected to this topic. Do you have any thoughts or ideas that you would like to suggest?
Sir, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Sir, as the date of submission of four skill lesson plan and conversation activity had been extended in the past, but I am asking you that for the final term exam will be on 17 December or it will also be extended?
No, it cannot really be extended. That's the date of that final exam. If you're not able to write that final exam, you can always wait and write the next final exam that comes up probably sometime in January.
All right, sir.
But they won't extend the date of the exam, no.
Okay, and sir, there will be only 2 more classes left?
2 classes are closed. 2 classes are closed.
No, you have a
The
class
classes
tomorrow
are
night with Elham, and then you have classes all next week.
All right, sir.
So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's seven more classes.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you for.
You have 2 more classes with me next week. Next Tuesday and Thursday, you have me again. But you have Elham for a few classes and Anna Patricia on next Wednesday. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. So that's everything. That's everything for tonight's presentation. And I'm going to stop the recording now.